Who is Garviel Loken? Garviel Loken was a captain of the 10th Company of the Luna Wolves, Space Marine Legion, during the latter half of the Great Crusade. After distinguishing himself in battle, he was inducted into the Mournival, the advisory council to the War Master Horus, and from this position was a first-hand witness to the series of events that would result in Horus's damnation and the beginning of the Horus Heresy. Long an upwardly mobile officer and friend to senior Captain Tarek Torgadon, Loken was inducted into the Mournival after the pacification of 6319, the first Mournival member not to be a son of Horus, the term for those Luna Wolves who bore a facial similarity to their Primarch. The bloodline of Chthoniya was strong in Loken, and as a result, he had pale, craggy features, short, fair hair, gray eyes, and a slightly freckled face. His tally of glories reckoned to be in line after those of Ezekiel Abaddon and Luke Sidere. Loken's martial record was unquestionable. His strength of character was vouched for by Torgadon and no less a personage than the Primarch of the Imperial Fists, Rogel Dorn, who was said to appreciate Loken's calm attitude. During a brief visit to the vengeful spirit before his legions returned to Terra, Dorn counseled Loken to always speak his mind as he saw fit, advising that his humanity would balance Abaddon's choler and Horus Aximon's lofty disdain when the Mournival was advising the War Master. During the Battle of the Whisperhead Mountains in 6319, Loken witnessed the demon Samus possess his comrade Xavier Jubal in an event which scared him deeply and served as his first exposure to chaos. For a time, Loken enjoyed a privileged position in the War Master's side. His relationship with his fellow Mournival brothers was cordial, and he was encouraged from his oath of service to speak as an equal. He even was invited and welcomed in the Warrior Lodge of the Luna Wolves. Loken and the other members of the Mournival continued to get along well until the battles on Davin and Arius, often in these happier times even play fighting with his brothers. However, as it became apparent that more and more activities amidst the Astartes of the Legion were becoming increasingly clandestine and out of character, Loken became suspicious and began to investigate. After the War Master's botched attempt at peaceful negotiations with the Interrex, the Luna Wolves were renamed the Sons of Horus, confirming Loken's fears that the old ways of the Legion were being forgotten. His research into the turbulent ancient history of Terra and ancient tombs such as the Chronicles of Ursh, at the behest of his troubled mentor, Kurl Sinderman, and his sponsorship of the rebellious remembrancer poet Ignance Carcassy, put him at odds with some of the most powerful and influential Astartes in the 63rd Expeditionary Fleet, including Chaplain Erebus of the Word Bearers, and even the War Master himself. When Horus was injured in Davin, Loken and Tarek Torgadon landed on Davin to try and find the weapon used to wound him. Recognizing the blade as being of Kinnebrak origin, he realized it had been stolen from Zenobia, the Interrex's capital city. He and Torgadon realized Erebus's treachery, but were unable to stop him from corrupting Horus. Horus eventually saw fit to have Loken eliminated during the betrayal at Isstvan III, placing him at the front of the doomed invasion force alongside his friend and fellow marginalized Mournival member, Torgadon. When the virus bomb strike failed to kill all the loyalist forces on the surface, the entirety of the traitor legions were eventually deployed to wipe out the survivors who had fortified the Precentor's palace under Loken's and Torgadon's and Saul Tarvitz's command. Giving command of the loyalist Astartes of the 16th Legion, Loken declared that they were once again the Luna Wolves. Loken fought to the last as a loyal servant of the Emperor and refused to give any quarter to those who had betrayed the Emperor in favor of Horus. After witnessing the death of Tarek Torgadon at the hands of Horus Aximon, he was wounded on Isstvan III by his old comrade Ezekiel Abaddon and was believed to have perished in the final orbital bombardment of the planet, along with the last surviving loyalist. Loken and Torgadon's deaths, supposed in the case of former, marked the removal of one of the final obstacles on Horus's great ambitions. Though it initially appeared Loken had perished in the final bombardment of Isstvan III, many months later, a team of Astartes led by Nathaniel Garo, on the orders of Malgador the Sigillite, were sent to the planet to recruit a single warrior. The wars of the Horus Heresy had long since moved onwards, leaving Isstvan III a shattered and desolate graveyard. In these circumstances, the one surviving and abandoned Astartes left upon the world had fallen to a form of madness, believing himself rejected by death and unable to remember his name. He took upon himself the name Cerberus and believed himself to be the only remaining loyalist, a legion of one, until he was confronted by Garo and his men. Initially hostile to a group that he perceived as traitors, the lone Astartes forced Nathaniel Garo to engage him in single combat, and Garo proved unable to overcome him physically. Thus, Garo appealed to the warrior's faith and duty and reminded him of his true identity. In this moment of lucidity, Loken remembered himself and agreed to go with them. Before leaving Isstvan, Garo confided in Loken that he was the final recruit the Sigillite had ordered them to find, and that they would learn the true purpose of their order when they returned to Terra. Loken's first mission for the Sigillite took him to Caliban, alongside his former comrade Ikton Cruz. The mission was to ascertain the strength and loyalty of the Dark Angels under Luther, if possible, the location and loyalty of Lion Il Johnson. Loken allowed himself to be captured by the Dark Angels. Confident Luther himself would interrogate him, he was correct, and during his conversation with Luther, one of the Watchers in the dark gave Loken a small portion of his telepathy abilities to read Luther's mind. To Loken's shock, it seemed Luther himself did not know where he fell in the Horus Heresy, only that he was against the Lion. This complicated the mission, as so no one knew the loyalty of the Lion. Loken escaped his cell with the help of the Watcher, but encountered a lone Dark Angel sentry. Loken fought not to kill, but subdue and capture, and he would not kill a possible loyal Space Marine. Cruz intervened with the help of Cypher, who was an old friend of both from their days in the Lone of Wolves. Cruz shot and killed the Dark Angel, which in Loken's horror. He confronted Cruz about this unnecessary murder, telling Cruz his death may have tipped the scales of loyalty against the Imperium. Cruz casually dismissed it, stating, "He will not be the first loyal servant of the Imperium I've killed, nor do I think the last." The two made their escape from the Dark Angel dungeon with the help of Cypher, who ultimately refused to offer to join them as one of Malcador's agents. Instead, he would serve in the shadows, loyal but unremembered. With their mission failed, Loken returned to Luna, vowing to have nothing more to do with the Sigillite and his secret machinations. Seeking a refuge, Loken occupied a small, disused dome of the Somnus Citadel, formerly the domain of a Sister of Silence who had perished in the Prospero, and devoted his time to restoring her small garden. In doing this, he also restored a small measure of peace to his fragile psyche. During his time here, he was visited by his old friend Torgadon, still very much dead. Torgadon reminded Loken of the oath he swore when he joined the Mournival, even if the Mournival itself no longer existed, to uphold the safety of the Imperium and to loyalty serve the Emperor of Mankind above any Primarch. Torgadon was also warned, ominously, that the traitors had done something terrible to him after his death, and only Loken could right it. Loken, reinvigorated, left the garden and told Cruz that he was ready to undertake his mission for the Sigillite. Loken's next mission was to be part of a band of Knights Errant that would journey to Melek, which they would infiltrate and mark the Sons of Horus flagship, Vengeful Spirit, in preparation for a plan by Lemon Russ to slay Horus. However, Loken and his team were captured and brought before Horus and Lupercal's court. After a tense reunion with Horus, Abaddon and Aximund, his former Primarch, gave him a chance to return to his fold. Despite the immense temptation, Loken resisted by remembering the words of Euphrates Keeler, and a battle broke out in the Lupercal's court. During the fight, Horus killed Cruz, finally breaking the last chains Loken had with his Primarch. Loken vowed that he would never stop fighting Horus. Shortly after the beacons were activated and Knight's Errant craft attacked the Vengeful Spirit, in the bombardment, Loken was sucked into space, but was rescued by Tarnhelm. Loken returned to service in the Knights Errant, fighting with Karo, Macer, Varen, Helig, Galler, and Vardis Isan against Chaos cultists on Terra shortly before Horus's arrival. During the battle, the demon known as the Lord of the Flies appeared and possessed the body of Varen. Loken was able to temporarily snap Varen out of his rampage, giving the former World Eater enough time to grab Loken's grenade pack and kill himself before the demon asserted control. Shortly after, Loken was brought by Malcador along with 8 other chosen Knights Errant to a chamber underneath the Imperial Palace. There it was revealed by the Emperor himself that the 9 would become founders of a new order which would fight against the depredations of the warp in order to save humanity. However, to go forward, each of the chosen would have to leave behind their past entirely and take up a new name. Loken was intended to become Cryas, but upon seeing the Emperor, understood that this was not to be his fate. He refused Malgador's title, and instead returned to the surface to settle things with the Sons of Horus once and for all. Loken next appeared amid the final phase of the Solar War, having received a message from Mercedes Olatin of her need to urgently meet with Rogel Dorn. After scolding Malgador for giving an order to kill all prisoners to prevent them from falling into traitor hands, Loken sped across the Sol system as it was embroiled in violence. He succeeded in rescuing Olatin, which brought her aboard the Phalanx to meet with Dorn, but this was revealed to be a trap by Chaos to allow for the manifestation of Samus directly into the battle station. Confronting Samus once again, Loken found himself at the Whisperheads on 6319, witnessing Xavier Jubal's possession by the demon once more. Overcome with madness and rage, Loken reverted to his Cerberus persona and fought any demon he came across. Together with Olatin, they were able to briefly save Samus, but the creature would just soon be reborn into a new corpse. To prevent this, Olatin bid Loken farewell and committed suicide to close the portal from which Samus had entered the Materium. Loken next appeared during the Battle of the Saturnine Gate, having been selected by Rogel Dorn and Malgador to lead a series of kill teams underneath the quarter in order to ambush the subterranean assault by the Sons of Horus. Seeking vengeance for their betrayal, Loken, Garo, Helig, Collar, and other allies such as Bel Saptis and Endrid Har successfully beat back the traitor assault. During the fight, Loken managed to personally slay Captain Tybalt Mar, avenge Tarek at last by killing Tormageddon, and finally exact his vengeance against Horus Aximund by eviscerating his former Mournival brother with his chainsword. After the battle, Loken remarked to Carol Sindaman that he was changing and becoming a conduit for the Emperor's power. Loken next journeyed into Terra's ruins to find Euphrates Keeler, who had gone missing. He discovered her leading fanatical militias in a hopeless religious war against traitor forces. Loken initially opposed this helpless struggle, but was determined by Keeler to allow her to continue her work. Loken agreed to stay with Keeler and make her see her senses before it was too late. Loken's ultimate fate is unknown, but in a conversation with Epimethus, one of the original Grand Masters of the Grey Knights during the Pandorix campaign, Abaddon questions the Grey Knight's lineage. Abaddon quickly dismisses several possibilities, stating he knows he's not, quote, the Ultramarine Rubio, end of quote, nor any of the other, quote, traitors from the traitor legions. Nathaniel Garo of the Death Guard are Marcel Varin of the World Eaters. Abaddon also concludes that Epimetheus can't be his ethereal brother, as he personally saw that Grand Master dead. However, as Loken rejected membership to the Grey Knights, Abaddon was most likely referring to Severian, who became the Grey Knight Grand Master known as Iopto, an old rival from the time of the Luna Wolves.